Hello, everybody, and welcome to Shades of Spirit here on YouTube and Facebook and wherever else you can find us. I am intuitive psychic medium Jamie. I'm also a Reiki master teacher and a paranormal investigator. I want you to ignore the bags under my eyes and the lopsided hair. It's been an absolute amazing day, an emotional day. I decided this time to record this and then post it instead of going live, only because I couldn't go live, and I've tried to do this 3 different times and it shut me down. So fourth time's a charm, right? I wanted to do these more on a sporadic, like when the emotion's hitting me, when spirit's connecting with me, when my spirit team's connecting with me, episodes, as opposed to scheduling them. So I was trying to go live on YouTube and Facebook. So sorry, you guys, I really do like interacting with you all, but I had to go this route because it just wasn't working for me tonight, and that is okay. Sometimes our emotions can build to the point where we affect our electronics, appliances around us, our phones, with our Reiki energy and the healing energy that I've been pumping out lately as well. That can absolutely mess up. Honestly, it can. It can mess up anything from your car to your computer. It doesn't just have to be a Mercury retrograde. Not that I fully believe that has anything to do with that. I mean, that's my own perspective. I don't allow it to affect me, so therefore I don't have things like go faulty on me during that time. But I do believe that we can ramp up our energy enough. So if you think about preteens, especially female preteens, you'll find more poltergeist activity around them, of things moving around, shifting, weird energies in the home. It's the hormonal imbalance. It's this energy just kind of, going in and out, if you will. Same thing goes for males at that age as well. So the energy, I think, is affecting what's going on. So I decided, you know what, forget it. I'm just going to record it because I'm still in that emotion and that energy. Today's episode is about grief and the expansion of grief. So, grief is not just contained to the loss of a loved one or a friend. Grief expands out into material objects, material items, if you will, right? So, in previous shows, you've heard me talk about going through my own grief journey with the loss of my mom, the beginning of August. And really kind of working my way through that and trying to, understand that part of it. It's different when you are a psychic medium and you've been doing it your entire life to then have someone so close to you pass in what you feel is an unrealistic time. The same thing goes for a friend of mine who took her own life and unalived herself when we were 16. But I was still 16, trying to grasp my head around that whole process and why that would have happened. Now, when we get through parts of grief, right, there are those stages of grief. And yet, what we don't take into consideration sometimes is the fact that grief expands into the material items. So today, we finally got multiple offers on my parents' house. So when my mom passed away, we realized that my dad did not want to live alone, that it kind of made him nervous with his health concerns. He does have 3 dogs. It made him very uneasy. And at the same time, if any of you are awake in America, you know what our economic situation is. So to have one person with a Social Security and this little tiny handout they gave a Vietnam veteran for his disability isn't necessarily going to cover what he needs to survive. And that truly is unfortunate, but this is not a show on politics. This is a show on grief and spirituality. So with that being said, we knew that we needed now to make decisions upon my dad's living situation, physical objects in the house. And so we've really been going through that process. We started right before I had my knee replacement on September 17th. We actually had the knee replacement. I had the knee replacement on September 17th, and by that Saturday, we were already moving in my dad. Not me. I was in the recliner chair in my dining room watching TV, healing while my family was moving my dad in. And then we decided, we had to put this house on the market. And he has put himself in a decent situation. He lived in his home for 50 years. They were original owners, my mom and him. And so there were a lot of memories, and as he called them, ghosts around every corner. And in reality, for him, it was half memories and half ghosts around every corner, because that house did have activity and was drawn towards my light, my gifts, as well as my dad. And just as we know, every piece of home that sits on land, no matter where you're at, is going to have some type of vibration, some type of energy coming in. And so we had to make a lot of kind of rapid decisions because we were not expecting my mom to pass as quickly as she did in the manner that she did. And so just going through the items themselves, it was, again, timing. There is no coincidence, you guys. There just isn't. Again, she was able to talk to two of my kids through Zoom for an hour who were out of state. Then my middle one, who was home for the summer, was able to come for an hour. She talked to my brother for almost 45 minutes on the phone. A good friend of hers showed up the day before. My aunt, uncle, and I had been there religiously throughout this process. She was able to gain that closure and have those conversations, and yet we didn't quite know, but we did, but we were not aware of the steadfastness that was going to happen for her passing. And so with that being part of it, that meant everything else had to move in rapid succession because my mom needed to be able to cross over and do her thing on the spirit side, but then we had to take care of the physical part. So going through her clothes, any jewelry, stuff like that, paintings, things that she collected. My kids were all home at the same time, so my daughters got to go through some things. My son got to go through some things that maybe were mementos that they wanted to take with my mom. I know that my aunt and I had a tough time of just clearing out her closet and those physical objects, right? Did they add up to multi-million dollars? No. Did it matter? Fuck no. All it mattered is that that's what mom wore for Abby's graduation. That's what mom wore in your wedding. Those were some of her jewelry pieces that she wore all the time for special occasions. My mom had my grandfather's wedding ring. It was something that my older daughter took, and it was just a gold band because she's very simple when it comes to that. So it was those type of material objects that would hit home. And before we could process her passing, we were already going through her items in the home, right? But then that was the next step. Everybody went back to school. We all went back into life. My dad and I made the decision to move him in with us. And so now it was now selling the house. And the house they bought as the original owners in San Diego 50 years ago, right? There was just canyons surrounding them. There was nothing around them. Everything built up around them. And I grew up there. They moved in 50 years ago. I'm 48, so you guys do the math, right? They lived there a couple years. They had me. And that's the only family home I've ever known. And I feel very grateful from that standpoint because I know that there are a lot of families out there who did move around. My own children, and we were not military, moved around house to house, location, location. We couldn't feel settled as that family unit. And that was disturbing to my mom. I know, Mom. But on the other hand, it was just this restlessness that we felt in our generation and our spiritual gifts of trying to find that right place. But the right place in the home was both my ex-husband's and myself's because his parents have lived in their home. They're second original owners. They've lived there almost as long as my parents had. And so we had those core places that we could call home, that our children could call home. I brought all three of my children there. They watched my children there. My son would sit with my dad, and my dad would make him Jakey eggs and put salt on them. And they'd watch SpongeBob, which my dad hated, or there'd be days when he was little, and I would get there after school to pick him up when I got off work, and they'd be watching the Looney Tunes. The memories of the swimming pool. This is the next stage of grief. This is what's happening right now. This is that processing that comes to fruition that sometimes we don't expect. Or if you have a family who has lost a loved one, whether that be a child, adult, or even a parent in a home, and you've decided that you just can't be in that space, and as my dad called them, because the ghosts are around every corner, and it's time to kind of start anew, start fresh, and you walk through that process, you go through the grief of being in that home and hearing that laughter and that fun, also understanding the tough times that were in there and what was overcome, family coming together, friends coming together, neighbors coming over, kids trick-or-treating, putting out the pumpkins for Halloween, whatever those things were, are a memory. But it also, when it comes time to let go of that material object, no matter how big or small, hits us at such a deep level. And it hits us in that heart center to where it brings all of that grief back up, right? And it is a process of transformation. It is a process of transition. It's about us relying on our faith, no matter what that looks like to each individual. And at the same time, we have to process that. We have to go through that. We have to understand that we're still okay. And that that person that has left us and has gone to the other side and is living out a most glorious life and working through their life lessons and doing their life reviews are okay. And that it is us having to work through the ego part of it with the spiritual part of it and allow ourselves to just be in that moment. I decided that it was extremely important because of what we do and what we do with Paranormal Road Trip, as well, is to clear the home. They finished doing some painting and some carpeting, all the things to get ready to sell the house. And before we put the house on the market the day before, I brought through a plethora of objects in order to cleanse the space. Because there was happy times and wonderful times, there was sad times, there was angry times. It's a house that sat there for 50 years. It was built on Native American burial grounds, right? So we have a lot of energy behind that home. And I wanted to make sure that before the first person that stepped through to take that first tour could feel what was back into a vibration of love, tranquility, peace, happiness, and joy. The memories that we shared on Christmas morning and Easter egg hunting, the memories that we shared of adding on a room and building a pool and having those summertime volleyball, competitions inside the pool and just being as a family. So I brought dragon's blood, sage. I brought some holy water in. I brought the bells to ring and to seal all the energy in. I worked with the Reiki energy. I brought in the money incense sticks because obviously when you're selling a property, you want to bring in as much income and revenue as you can. Went through the entire house in a sense of bringing in Archangel Michael and clearing energy out that didn't serve our highest and best. And then I put things in the four corners of the home as land offerings and protection crystals and high vibrational crystals, just to really smooth all of it over. Because 50 years is a long time and a lot of energy. And my mom's health wasn't always the best. My dad's health wasn't always the best. They had their own marriage. Of course, they had their own ups and downs. Two teenagers in that household with their own energies, as well as someone who was very intuitive and being able to tune into the energy around and bringing that energy through. So it was important for me to work on the cleansing process, which was also a great place for me to be able to kind of have my moment in each room and remember the positive things in each room and laugh and just kind of have that moment to myself. But at the same time, as I left each room, that sadness would wash over because you have those happy memories and you have that space knowing that you're never going to be able to go back. Today was tough because when we put the house in the market a week ago, I knew the house would go quickly based on the location that it was at. But you kind of hope that it is prolonged, but at the same time you don't. I want to move this along. I want to be able to give my dad what he needs, to be able to take care of my dad for what he needs, to be able to take a whole weight off of his shoulders. And so today was the day that we went over the offers that we got for the house. And when I finish this recording and I start to send it off to post, I will then go in and I will hit submit on all of the places we're supposed to sign. And I'll be turning over that place that I grew up in. I'll be turning over, or if my son needed something or he just needed a few more minutes before he went to school, we could go to Grandpa's house and he could have that moment. I'll be turning over watching both of my parents stand on the stairs every time, waving at us from the street, walking us out. I will be turning over the happy memories of learning how to ride a bike in the cul-de-sac with my neighbors, how to learn how to ride roller skates, being able to walk to my next door neighbor's house to play Super Mario Brothers because we didn't have any type of Nintendos and stuff like that for a long time, or watching cable TV next door. I'll be able to turn over the memories of when I would babysit next door and I was young and I didn't understand how to soothe the baby and had to call my dad to come next door. And as soon as he picked the baby up and held him the right way, the baby fell asleep. He put him back down. He went back home. All right, Lisa, you've heard that story, but my dad's the one that got Christopher to sleep, not me. I just made sure that he was still breathing all the time and was fed and changed. But you're turning over these special, heartfelt memories. And then I think about my clients who have been in these type of situations, whether it be a parent or a child or a spouse. And when we turn these memories over, we have to remember we're turning them over for our highest and best, that we're turning them over in a space of love and light. We're letting go of the control. We're letting go of the ego. But what will always reside in my mind is rolling those windows down in the car and telling my kids, hey, wave to Grandpa and Grandpa, say goodbye. We lived primarily in the same neighborhoods that I grew up in. And Halloween was a huge time for us. And this is a tough month for me because my mom's birthday is on the 28th of this month. So all the memories on our phones that come up have been of her. And our favorite holiday really was Halloween. Going out and decorating with my dad and carving our pumpkins and bringing the kids over to carve pumpkins. But no matter where we were, we always made sure that we went back to Grandma and Grandpa's house to trick or treat like it was a house we'd never seen before. And when the kids got a little bit older and we weren't there to help set up, to see what Grandpa did that year. And yes, he's still with us. But those were the memories. That's the grief that starts to filter through. And I want you guys to know you're not alone. You're not crazy. That the grief of the material objects, the grief of the material memories, are just as real as the grief of the loved ones. And do they go hand in hand? Of course they do. But I have to say that a lot of that grief that I'm feeling tonight is grief of someone that is still here, of the memories that I have with my dad. And of course, there's 1,000 memories of my mom and what she's done for us and the kids. But that deep-centered grief right now is just centered around the loss of that home, and yet knowing that he's in the best place possible with us, that he's got his dogs, take him down dinner, he's got people to talk to, get him to his doctor's appointments, like all of that type of stuff. But I know when I sign those papers in a little bit that I no longer have the access and the connection. That connection is severed in a sense, because now that contractual obligation between the last name and my maiden name is gone. That it will just be memories. It will just be those times that I hold dear in my heart, holding my kids' birthday parties, or my son. It was the pandemic when it was promotion time, so all the family on both sides came over, and we sat around the island at my mom and dad's house and had the computer up, and I have video and pictures of him promoting via Zoom in that home, and then us celebrating, going out and swimming. The grief is still real. The grief is still in here. And it's still real, and it's still raw, and it's okay to feel that. So sometimes when we talk about things, when it comes down to the spiritual world, and we're talking about material objects, and it does kind of sound egotistical, if you will. My uncle and aunt were just able to sell my mom's car, right? I don't have a lot of ties to my mom's car, but that was something of hers. It was just one of those things where we don't need two cars. My dad has his own, right? It's these things that are tied into that space. My dad has his own memories of them taking their dogs up to the park and a walk. They used my mom's car. It was a little bit bigger. There's the spiritual grief in that place. It's a material object that holds value, right? Just like my girls being able to take some of my mom's jewelry, and even my son a couple pieces that were more masculine. Paintings that we have, things around the house. I have her entry table that I haven't been able to do anything with because when I look at that, I think of her. And I think of her saying, don't put the glass of water on top of the entry table without a coaster, or just don't do it at all because it's real cherry wood oak and it will get a ring, right? But right now it's got some towels on it and a cardboard box. I don't know if she'd be super happy about that idea, you guys. I think she'd prefer that I actually put the Halloween stuff over there, but I stare at it. I remember her. I see it in her house, in their house. Um, Making sure the keys were in the dish that were right there so that neither one of them would forget where they put their car keys. And yet they'd still walk around the house for hours trying to find their car keys or their house keys before we left. Spiritual grief tied to material objects is a real thing. And it is okay. It's it should be celebrated. And I know I'm super emotional, and I told you it's real, it's raw. I'm bringing you that emotion, I'm bringing you that part of it. But at the same time, I know that the person that we've picked to purchase the home um, is looking for a first time home. Like, I learned the background of some of the people that are looking to buy the house, and does that work within the budget? But it's also time to let it go. And that part of releasing is the tough part, right? We can carry the memories, we're going to carry the tears. I'm going to remember bringing home the Christmas trees and my aunt and uncle falling asleep on the floor in front of the fireplace after we've opened presents when they got their Christmas morning because they spent all of Christmas Eve night with his family. And just birthday parties and, dance parties, slumber parties in the living room, and boys coming over and toilet paper in the house. And then I thought it'd be wise to bring in my neighbor and his cousin to watch a scary movie. It was Alien, by the way. All things that my mom had a big no to, and I did all of them, so I got grounded for 2 weeks. Those are those memories, but at the same time, it carries a part of who I was in growing up. And so when you have that material, spiritual grief. I want you to feel it. I want you to acknowledge it. Look back at pictures. I want you to laugh. I want you to cry because it's the memory of the person in the space, but it also is the memories that you held with everybody else. And I think that's so important to really get through is that it's the memories that we've held with everybody else who shared a special place in our hearts, within our homes. Maybe it was in your car that you listened to a certain type of music and went to concerts, right? That first car that you bought. Spiritual grief doesn't have to be tied necessarily to a loved one that has been crossed over or a friend. It could be that you had to sell, as I recall my mom having to sell her Cougar car, which was her baby. Um, there was grief in that. There was sadness in that. There were memories behind that car before she had a family, right? So that spiritual grief can come in so many different forms and fashions. Maybe we lose a piece of our wedding ring, a diamond, or something. A prong opens up and something falls out. There's a sense of grief if we can't find it and having to replace it and not feeling complete because we don't have the original, and that's okay. But also know the new that comes into that space, that new little diamond that goes in here, or the new big diamond that goes there, or you lost your wedding ring when you were, snorkeling in Hawaii and it fell into the rocks and it's gone. But the new one that was replaced, that new car that was replaced, isn't replacing those memories. It's bringing and adding new memories to you. It's bringing new memories to who you are. And that is what is important in all of this, is that my dad now can be here. I get to see him every day. He is getting the proper health care that he needs now. He's getting proper meals that he needs now. He gets to see my son every single time my son is here, whether it's running grandpa down some food or helping him plug this in or get this set up or go down and, say hi to grandpa and help take out whatever it is, that my dad gets to live his final years in a space of love and compassion and new memories. Not that the old memories were all bad, not that the old memories were something that he just couldn't wait to run out of the house for. He couldn't wait to run out of the house in order to be able to feel safe and secure and just be able to move forward and to allow those ghosts to be where they are and to let them be, but able to create new memories. So yeah, like it's an emotional day, it's a tough day. It's also a day to celebrate that what he had done in order to build for his retirement, his health care, all of that type of stuff, he's actually going to be able to come to fruition with, to a level to where he never wanted to have someone else pay for care if that's the way he has to go. So it's a celebration. So it was a sadness today when we finally decided on the offer and talked to the real estate agent and lender. But at the same time, it was also a time of celebration. But I don't want to feel bad about either one. I want to be in the middle. I want to be okay. I will be okay. It's just another step in processing and knowing that I can call on my angels and I can call on my spirit guides. I can ask my mom to come through. I can ask my family to come through that celebrated all those holidays and all those memories with us. And in order for us to allow this escrow process to be able to be that finality of healing, and then to be able to still maybe drive past that house once in a while and still see both parents standing there waving and knowing that was the gift right there. That was the memory. That is the gift. And that gift will continue giving through myself and my family. It's something that my kids can take their kids to see and talk about Grandma and Grandpa's house one day when he's not here. That we keep that memory alive, but we celebrate it, and yet we're still allowed to grieve it. And maybe that memory isn't always going to be about the person themselves, but it will be about the memories that we had in the material place that we shared together. So, with that being said, for those of you that have had to go through things like this, I am truly sorry. For those of you that have lost someone and needed to remove yourself from that space, I understand. And for those of you that are living sometimes with the ghosts, because it isn't feasible for us to move every time someone passes, just know that those loved ones are still walking those halls with you from time to time. They're in a place where they are okay. They're still evolving and growing. If you want a reading, call me. We can connect with that energy in that home. But also know that the home itself carries energy, the objects within the home carries energy, and that all of those items, no matter big or small, if you brought them into your own space, if you sold your mother's house who had passed and you brought some of those items in, they're still holding her energy and that vibration. So if you find that you get emotional in certain areas of your own home, I want you to really take stock of what's around you. Is that your stuff? Is that stuff you brought from your loved one's home? And it might need a nice little clearing of, some sage, some prayer, some Reiki, whatever it might be, in order to kind of dissipate a little bit of the grief. But it doesn't mean you're losing the energy of that loved one in those items. So grief can come in so many different fashions. It's not just the way that the person passed, or the fact that we lost a family member or a friend, a loved one, companion, whatever that person might be. Grief can come from the inanimate objects, it can come from the material objects. Grief can just come at any point in time. And we stand strong in the space of allowing ourselves to feel it and release, but then fill those empty memories back in with the love that was shared. And if there is a space where you're like, there wasn't a great home, I did not feel loved, if it was something that just was more on that lower vibrational space, I want you to look at where you're at today. I want you to look at the strength that you have within and still give credit to those lessons that were learned in that space to fill that void with something high vibrational, something that will give back to you. I appreciate you guys listening. I appreciate you guys following. Please like and share Shades of Spirit LLC on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram. You guys can book sessions at shadesofspirit.com, and absolutely go follow Paranormal Road Trip, Paranormal Road Dash Trip. You guys will find us. We have a black and white picture on YouTube. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. It's LaShawn, Luminous Mystic, and myself. We've got some really cool up-and-coming things coming up very quickly as well when it comes down to the paranormal side of this as well. So I wish you guys a wonderful evening. I appreciate you all, and I will talk to you guys again soon.